Hi guys,
welcome back again to the channel. We've been away for a while and we got married during the period we've been away. We are going to be doing a story time about that, and let's get right into today's reaction.
Say hello to my little friend. Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 infamous British gangsters.
And he just fights. He just fights and fights and fights.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we take a look at the most ruthless and notorious gangsters in modern British history.
The worst crime a man could commit is bringing...
You know, this one very distinguished differences in all these gangsters they are showing us.
What?
They all look so innocent at face. Like, the other guy they call Little looked like he could not even harm a little fly.
Yeah, thinking about it.
His family up in poverty. So I don't regret any of my actions.
Number 10. Lenny McLean.
Oh,
Frequently dubbed the hardest man in Britain, McLean was known to most people simply as the Governor.
Are you gonna pay?
Barry makes sure the administrative side of the business runs harmoniously.
While his gangster credentials aren't as prominent as some, he did become Britain's most famous bare-knuckle street fighter, and reportedly one of the best. Throughout his career, McLean said to have fought in almost 4,000 matches, and to have won most of them.
I used to mind the toughest clubs in Britain, all over the country. I had about 20,000 barroom brawls.
An important figure in the East End as a bouncer, bodyguard and enforcer, he often associated with people such as the Cray Twins and Charles Bronson, before in his later life he worked as an actor.
I suggest you get those guns. Quick!
Number 9. Thomas McGraw. Born in Glasgow, Tam the licensee McGraw's criminal career started off with burglary and armed robbery, and he eventually became one of the most wanted men in Scotland. In the 1980s, after somehow avoiding a stint in prison after a failed robbery, he began to expand his criminal empire.
What?
You don't know this guy?
No.
I'm trying to remember his name, literally. He's the guy that...
The name is written there.
Yeah, he acted Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. as an evil scientist.
Oh.
Are you serious?
Wow.
I don't understand, like...
Wow. How is it notorious?
That's what I'm curious.
Wow.
Oh, he's the same guy. He's the same guy. He's the same
His
guy.
efforts down there if he's
He's
the
the
same
same
guy.
guy.
Alright, yeah.
Yes.
Like, I just saw his face. He was the evil scientist that actually developed the AI that later overthrew the Agent Shields. I remember this movie because I watched it like a million times.
Wow.
Wow.
Empire by selling heroin and purchasing numerous clubs and pubs. He was one of the key figures in Glasgow's ice cream wars, where violent confrontations become commonplace among criminals using ice cream vans as a front for drug sales. Number 8. Charles Bronson. With his taste for fighting guards and inmates alike, Charles Bronson became known as Britain's most violent prisoner, and is one of British crime's most notorious figures.
They said, I'm bigger than my name.
Born Michael Peterson, Bronson began as a petty criminal and was first imprisoned for armed robbery.
Prison was finally a place where I could sharpen my tools.
Upon his release in 1987, he entered the world of bare-knuckle boxing, but his fighting career was fairly short-lived because 69 days later, he was in jail again. Out again in 92, he was arrested a third time for conspiracy to rob, and has never been freed since.
And would you like a cup of tea too, mate?
Number 7. Freddy Foreman. He's best known as Brown Bread Fred, or the godfather of British crime, as many publications have come to refer to him, but Foreman says he's nothing like Marlon Brando.
All I wanted to do is make money so we could live a decent life.
They also have history with movie, like they act. Are they like, because they showed Lion Gates, a lot of things like they are in a movie before, like the acted movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a bit confused if it's actually from the movie or their real life, like their personal life.
Yeah, that's another
Because the
thing.
film, yes.
One of the East End gangster scene's most feared figures, he was close to the infamous Cray Twins and was implicated in numerous murders and other criminal activities.
Once you pull the trigger, you never know what's going to happen. So.
Though never actually convicted of killing anybody, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for disposing of the body of Jack the Hat McVitie, and later in relation to 1983's Shoreditch Security Express robbery.
I feel like when my time's up, at least I've had an eventful life, if nothing else.
Number 6. Tommy Comerford. The hometown of the Beatles has had its share of shady characters. This includes one of the first big business criminals to establish in England the kind of international drug trafficking network that you perhaps usually link to a mob overseas. Drug baron Tommy Tucker Comerford was instrumental in forming the first serious drug dealing cartel in Britain, which made the Liverpool Mafia the richest in the country. His first stint in jail came after a bank robbery, and during his long criminal career, he was sentenced to more than 34 years behind bars. Number 5. Desmond and Dominic Nan. These two brothers were the head of one of Manchester's most infamous and ruthless gangs, which by the late 1990s had become one of the most notorious crime families in the whole of Britain.
We don't do everything nice, but you know, we do look after each other. We look after our friends.
Involved in drug trafficking, nightlife security, and armed robbery, the Noonans' reign over Manchester's underworld lasted over 20 years.
By day it's run by police, by night it's run by gangsters. Manchester is where I was born, where I live, and where I'll die.
During that time, they were also suspected of being responsible for more than 25 murders. Desmond was stabbed in 2005 and died of his wounds, while Dominic is currently serving 22 years in prison for arson, blackmail, and sex offences.
Shut up, I'll send someone out, I'll beat you up in a minute.
Number 4. Frankie Fraser. One of the most recognisable faces in modern British crime, Mad Frankie Fraser was a guy you didn't want to cross.
The police say I've killed 40 people, not 41. If they'd have said 41, I'd have really been upset. I hate odd numbers.
And the nickname is not just for show. He was actually certified insane during a short prison stint after World War II, a conflict he'd managed not to take part in by deserting. Fraser eventually became an enforcer for the Richardson Gang during the 60s and was reportedly involved in numerous episodes of torture and murder.
I allegedly pulled a guy's teeth out with pliers. I only wished it had been true.
His violence.
This man is cold.
That's what I'm saying. He looks so
like
cold.
you got his characteristics just by looking at him. He's cold and deadly.
Yes.
And all this thing does not faze him.
Yeah.
And the cold. Anybody that is cold is actually the most dangerous. Because they don't actually feel anything for the person.
Ha.
Wow.
Followed him in prison, where he would often start fights with other inmates and guards.
That is where I slung Eric Mason out with an axe in his head.
Number 3. The Gunn Brothers. Heads of the Bestwood cartel, named after the Bestwood estate in Nottingham where they set up their criminal enterprise, brothers David and Colin Gunn became the city's foremost gang lords.
In the 1990s, the brothers had risen through the ranks from petty criminals to underworld figures, a rise largely unchallenged by the city's other criminals.
Drug trafficking, protection rackets, corruption and murder became commonplace under their watch, so much so that the city earned the nickname of Shottingham. As their empire grew and drugs flowed in, Colin started becoming more and more violent and volatile, as steroids and cocaine use heightened his worst impulses. Under his watch, even innocents would pay the price of his crimes. Number 2. The Richardson Brothers. Charlie and Eddie.
If you notice the third and the second now, they are brothers, like family.
It's kind of like a family thing.
Yeah, and they are ranking like the highest, like the top among the top 5 to show how
deadly
they are, like how the gene is more dominant there.
The Richardson were the leaders of what many still consider the most sadistic and ruthless gang in Britain, the Richardson Gang. They were often simply referred to as the Torture Gang due to their preferred way of settling scores and intimidating rivals and transgressors. After holding mock trials, their victims could be subject to electric shocks, teeth pulling using pliers, toe cutting, or even being nailed to the floor. The Richardsons controlled South London, but ended up in a feud with the Crays that lasted into the mid-60s.
The Richardsons, they were frighteners, really vicious people.
Number 1. The Cray Twins. The most infamous gangsters to ever call London home, Ronnie and Reggie Cray were the most prominent criminals in the city.
Yes.
Venom.
I think these people people are like probably
I think
they
they
did
did
a
a movie
of
about them.
Oh.
Yeah, because I was confused.
Because I was actually confused.
Is this actually real or just a movie? But I think they made a movie out of
Okay,
their life.
maybe they don't know their real face, so they are using the movie
No, just, I
representation
think they
of
know
it.
They know their real face, but they don't want to put something like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, their faces were shown.
Yeah, I'm
showed
talking
their
about the ones that they are using the movie stars for.
yeah.
As you understand what I mean? Like this one that they are showing us Venom right now. You know, he's not. We know he's not the villain.
Yeah.
City's East End over the 1950s and 60s.
Wow, no.
Armed robbery, hijacking, murder and general violence were only some of the brothers' specialities while heads of their own gang, the Firm. As owners of several nightclubs in the 60s, they became part of the swinging London scene and gained a certain amount of celebrity, even appearing on national television. But they were finally arrested in 1968 and essentially spent the rest of their lives in prison.
Before we start, got a little joke for you. You'll love this one. Paranoid schizophrenic who walks into a bar.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from Watch Mojo UK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.
The ending was just brutal.
I'm telling you, it wasn't expected. It wasn't expected at all.
So I guess that man I was actually referring to, that he acted Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I'm guessing right now he is not the gangster.
Yeah.
I think they used him to portray
the character
of the individual. Yeah. So my mind is now calm.
But I said, right, because when the video started, the other gang members, I think up to how many 10. Like the first 5 people or the first 3 top people are actually family related. Like the twin,
the Richardson.
Yeah, and like their family, and I'm wondering, like, why are they the top? Because
there's actually a saying, right, that no one can hurt you as much as family, and when family band together, they tend to do the most biggest or dangerous thing in the world. You understand? Because now the trust is there, which means is like a well-oiled engine moving smoothly without interference. But when there is no trust, you see that the progress hinders. But because it is family, the trust is there, the love is there, and you know, having each other's back is there.
Yeah, just like starting a business with your family, and
Do you
just
understand?
flourish. And I think that's why this gangster too, especially the top 3.
And I'm sure they grew up as every other person, but they're just at some point tend to be cold and frightening.
Yeah, they do grow up as everyone, because if you watch one video that they showed, right, they showed one kid running around eating chicken, which means it was not a violent childhood, more like how will I call it, the society they were bred into. They say the demand how will I put it, the demand in some certain cases. Like, okay, let me use an example of our own country right now. We all know there are places you don't train your child, because when you train your child there, no matter how good your intention is, when the child goes out to the world, do you understand?
That's just the word.
So
Product of our environment, and wow, this is really, really enlightening.
and here I thought that my country has the baddest gangster. That guy came from the back with a hammer and just like.
I mean, what? You see that guy, that cold guy. I told you was called that. With pliers.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching to this time. Please make sure please do consider liking, subscribing, and we'll see you guys on our next one. Bye guys.